If you would have told me when I was 13 that I would one day teach an American history class at the high school level and that I'd use the music of one of my favorite bands to teach that material, I would have thought you were insane. But that is what I do. I am incredibly passionate about music. I write music, I perform music, I listen to music, I read about music, I collect music. When I became a teacher, I realized there were so many similarities between performing music and being a teacher. The classroom's our stage. Unit plans are like our albums. Daily lesson plans are like our songs or our singles, And all successful singles, all the songs that are remembered by people have great hooks. There's something about them that's so memorable and so infectious that we just can't forget them. If I mention a song like "Another One Bites the Dust," what do you think of immediately? You think of the bass line, that doo 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 doo, boom 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 boom, right? It's like it's there, boom. So when I became a teacher, I thought, well, how do I get a hook? What's my hook for my daily lesson plans? What can I do? What would be interesting? And so I fell back on my passion for music, and I am a great admirer of the band REM. And growing up, I love their music. I love the sound of the records, but I also was intrigued that so many of the songs dealt with specific aspects of American history. And so when I became a teacher, specifically an American history teacher, I thought, oh wow, I can use those REM songs in class. That would be pretty cool. So I made a list of all the REM songs that had some tie to American history, and it turns out there are a number of them. The one I'm going to talk about today is a song called Cuyahoga. This song deals with the cultural subjugation of Native Americans at the hands of Anglo-Americans in the 1800s. It also makes reference to the Cuyahoga River in the song, saying that it's gone, and references to it burning. So I thought, okay, this will be great to use in class. The reason I thought this would be a good idea too is that a lot of the students, they have a difficult time developing historical empathy. We tend to think that because we're so passionate about a subject that our students are going to be equally passionate about it. And for some of the students, like, yeah, this is all right, but I really like math better, or I'm not really that into this. We have to find a way to bring them to us. They might not become like the world's most passionate American history scholar, but we can make them interested enough that what we do teach them sticks with them, or at least they think about it enough to develop their own sense of what these parts of American history mean. So what I normally do to help develop this sense of historical empathy is use the work of my dear friend and incredible educator, Dr. Anthony Pellegrino. Dr. Pellegrino developed a worksheet called the Principles of Listening and Analysis. And this worksheet basically asks students to identify mood and theme and historical connection in the songs that you use in class. So I usually modify these worksheets to suit whatever I'm trying to achieve with my students in that given unit. For Cuyahoga, what I would normally do is provide the students with a blank copy of the worksheet, either digitally or physically, and I provide them with a copy of the lyrics, either digitally or physically. And I will tell them who the song is by, what the name of the song is, when it came out, and whether the voice they're hearing is the voice of the songwriter. And I tell the students, they go through the lyrics, write down any thoughts that come to mind. Whether you like the song, you don't like the song, you like the guitar, you like the voice. If you see words that are familiar to you or that we mentioned in class, circle them. Anything that comes to mind, make a note of it. So we listen to the song as a class. Students are making notes. Some of them are looking at the questions on the PLA sheet. And when the song ends, I open it up for a class discussion. I say, okay, who can tell me what they think the song is about? And student hands go up and they say, well, I think it's about Native Americans. I think that they're talking about the loss of land to settlers. I think that, and I'll say, well, how does a song feel to you? And some students will say it sounds sad. It sounds, the singer sounds very serious. They'll say the bass line sounds very dark. They'll make all these comments and all these kind of connections with how the music makes them feel. So they're not only connecting with the song on that emotional level, but they're also looking at the lyrics and trying to connect it to what they've just learned in class. At that point, after about a 10-minute discussion or so, I'll say, okay, I'm going to play you the song again. But before I do, I want you to do something for me. I want you to Google Cuyahoga River 1969. Then I want you to look at the PLA worksheet and start answering the questions. So I play the song, they Google Cuyahoga River 1969, and they discover that the river that year caught fire because it was so polluted. But in the course of researching that, they discover that the river caught fire multiple times. And you can see their faces just like, oh my, they're shocked by this. And so they start furiously, they're writing, they're answering questions on the PLA sheet, they're making notes on the lyrics, and it all comes together. So when the song finishes, everybody's hands up and they're ready to make a comment. They're ready to talk about it. Now they feel invested. They have an opinion. They have feelings about the matter. It isn't just something they have to memorize to get 100 on the next test or eventually get a 4 or 5 on the AP exam. This is something that means something to them. And what I've discovered is that, this really sticks with the students. So if I mention this song months later, they'll do two things. They'll do a really poor imitation of Michael Stipe singing the song. And then they will start rattling off facts about what we discussed in that unit and what was pertinent to that song. So how do I use this in the class beyond this one class discussion? Well, sometimes I have the students fill out the PLA and I count that as part of their next assessment. Or you could count it as a quiz. Or sometimes you can develop new questions based on the work the students did in the PLA sheet and put those on your next assessment. But the most important thing is that the students really remember. There's your hook. They remember the song. They remember hearing it. They remember their opinions about the way it sounds. They remember the way they felt when they connected the lyrics to what we had learned in class. And they now feel that this is something that they have a right to speak about, that they have knowledge enough to have an opinion about. And they become passionate about the subject. And that's the most important thing. So, I'm very lucky. I get to use something I'm very passionate about in my classroom. But the most important aspect of this is that the students, not only is my passion infectious, but they develop their own passion. They love the idea that they could take something they never heard before, because most of them have not heard that song, and they can apply it to another piece of new knowledge that they've learned. And they've put it together in a way that makes them feel not only confident and invested in the material that they're learning about, but and again, this sounds really silly, but it makes them feel smart. It makes them feel intellectual. It makes them feel like, hey, I belong in this back and forth in class. I'm invested. I'm listened to. I'm forming opinions. So, for those of you who are worried, oh, I don't really know REM, or I don't really, you don't have to just use REM. REM is not the only band that you can use in American history class. You don't even have to use music that always has lyrics. You can use something that's instrumental. There's so many ways that you can use music in that classroom. Find what works for you. Look up the principles of listening and analysis sheet, and give it a shot. I think that you'll find that the students will be excited, they'll be curious, and it will develop a level of historical empathy that will ultimately be beneficial not only to your aims as a teacher, but most importantly to the student and their development as a thinking individual.